A dog that pulls like a freight train, especially when there are other dogs around, is no picnic. But when that dog weighs as much as you, or almost as much as you, walks become unbearable. Today, I want you to meet Lilo and her unbearable walks and how we made walks easy and fun again and showed Lilo and her mom that she was trainable after all. So stay tuned and have fun. Alright, so Lilo was supposed to be untrainable. Many trainers told her mom that she was untrainable. She was around 50 kilos or 110 pounds. She was a Boerboel Mastiff mix, so she was a really big girl. She was about waist high when she was standing next to her mom. And her mom was really a very slim woman. So, of course, I didn't ask her how much she weighs, but I would have guessed it was not much more than Lilo. And they had been to many trainers before. I think it was about 4. And they had done so many things. So they had tried prong collars, e-collars, slip leads, and of course correcting her whenever she started pulling or stepping in front of her, so body blocking and even punching her and all those things, because her mom was always told that with a dog this size, she had to be very strict, she had to be very straightforward, and she had to be a little bit harsh. Because otherwise she, as a tiny woman, would never be able to show that big dog that she was boss, right? So she never felt good doing all those things, and she never did them as harshly as the trainers did. But it didn't matter if she walked Lilo or if a trainer did, all those things did not work. Now, of course, in the beginning with an e-collar, it kind of startled her into stopping and not pulling, but she got used to that pretty quickly. And since the trainer always wanted to turn it up, there was a point where Lilo's mom did no longer go with it. And that's awesome. It's so huge. It's so brave to stand up against such a trainer, because very often they are not that sensitive with people either. So this takes a lot of courage. Now, what we did right away was I asked her, since they had been to many trainers before and so many things have been tried, if there ever was a professional who took the time and asked some questions, who took the time to really assess what was going on and get behind the cause and the root of Lilo's pulling. Was there ever done an assessment? And the answer, shockingly, was no. No trainer had ever bothered to look at more than this very shallow problem. She was a young dog. I'm not 100% sure what age she was. I think between 1 and 2 years old. But for such a big dog, this is no age. This is really still teenage phase, right? And for a trainer not to look into what's going on, it's wasted time. It's wasted time, and of course this dog is not trainable in that way, because the pulling was not the actual issue. And yes, that might look that way because she was really fine at home, and they got her from a former owner who had kept her in a backyard of some kind as a guard dog. But Lilo was never a guard dog. Again, she was not fully grown, and she might have developed some guarding things or guarding behaviors later in life, but at her age, she was really no guard dog. So she was friendly to everybody coming in the door, and she was not watching anything, again, that might have changed if he had kept her. But thankfully, the new owners found her and fell in love with her, and they treated her as a family member and not some kind of tool. So Lilo was staying in the house. She did not know anything. She didn't have any exposure as a puppy because she was only kept as a tool in the backyard. So she didn't know any household items. She didn't know any appliances. She didn't know TVs or radios. She didn't know that there were people walking their dogs on leashes. That was completely new for her. She knew a collar, but not a harness, because she had never been in a harness. And there were so many more things that she didn't know. She knew cars, and she knew how to ride in a car, which was a huge advantage. But everything else was kind of not really something she was familiar with. So, of course, Lilo felt insecure on leash. In her first months or years of life, she hadn't been walked. So she didn't know how to behave. She was really badly muscled because she didn't have any exercise physically or mentally. So her former life was pretty boring. So what came together for her was she was overstimulated with her environment because there are so many different things outside, right? There's always some kind of new thing out there, be it a smell, be it something to see, be it some movement, right? Because in a backyard, especially with a big dog, there is not so much to see, even if you watch the fence line, because that was really very remote where she lived before. So going on regular walks was already a bit too much for her. And since she was badly muscled, it was physically exhausting for her as well. So we had to start as we would with a puppy. And on one hand, get her used to a harness, because a pulling dog on a collar is really up for even more health issues in the neck area. And it's never a good idea to put a dog who pulls on a collar. So we introduced her to a harness very gently, so she would love that thing. And then as soon as we started having her on a harness, we immediately taught her that a leash means she has to stay in a specific radius around her mom. And since she didn't know leash walks on a harness, this was a perfect clean slate to start with. And also we kept it so short and so easy for her that she was no longer overwhelmed with those walks. We also did a lot of confidence building stuff and muscle building exercises, so she would learn to feel her body. She would learn how to coordinate her legs and her body, and that is also something that boosts confidence. But it also helps with balance, and it helps with muscle building and protect joints and all those things. So that was really great. And what we also did was we taught her that her mom was really somebody she could rely on and she could fall back on if she felt insecure outside, because both of those breeds are prone to make their own decisions. They are not bred to work very closely with humans. So since she was really friendly and she was really interested in her humans, we had a very easy way in. But had she been 7, 8, 9 years old and always making her own decisions, never relying on humans, this would be a lot different. It's not impossible, even for older dogs, but it's different. And she was actually really quick to learn new things. She was easy to motivate, either with food or with watching things or with running together. Of course, running together was something she couldn't do in the beginning because she was just not in a physical state that will allow that. But watching stuff and food worked perfectly. So as soon as she realized that training now meant having fun together with her human, she was very happy to get into that. And her mom was eager to train. She had lost complete interest in training. She once told me that she actually didn't want to call me because she didn't want to go through that again, and she had no interest anymore in training. She had no nerves for it anymore, and she had already halfway decided that Lilo would either be just a home dog or need a new home. And this is what put them on the same side. It put them in the same boat. They had made really bad experiences with training because all those techniques, even if they worked, are horrible experiences for the dog, and they are for the human as well. Except for humans who get their kicks out of hurting their dogs. That's a thing too, but not for this one. So it's really important that we look at why our dogs are behaving the way they are behaving. For Lilo, she was just young, she was inexperienced, she was overwhelmed by everything, she needed way more sleep and process all those things she learned every single day, because life just brings up new stuff all the time. And as soon as they were in a mutual understanding, so Lilo understood what her human wanted her to do, because they had actually taken time to tell her what to do and not only tried to stop her from doing everything she was doing. Because, let's be honest, try to stop something you are doing without an alternative. Like, if you have any habit you want to get rid of, like smoking. I was a smoker, and if I had just tried to stop smoking without an alternative, it would have been so much harder. And now this is an addiction. This is way more difficult than just normal behavior. But when you exchange it, so you don't do one thing anymore, like every time you go in the kitchen, you open the fridge and take out something not that healthy to eat. If you just try to stop it, but you have gotten used to that, and it's rewarding, right? Because it tastes good, it's really difficult. But if you switch it up and every time you go to the kitchen, you take a glass of water, or if you need something sweet, you take something sugar-free, out of the fridge, like a piece of fruit or anything like that, and you eat that. It's way easier. And for the dogs, it's the same thing. Lilo had never learned what she was supposed to do. She didn't know that there was a radius around her mom she was supposed to be in, because there was a leash attached to her. She just wanted to go a specific way, and there was some tugging on her, but she didn't know what that means. So she tried to just keep going. And that was when the pulling started. And also, we are much slower than our doggy friends, right? So when they're attached to us through a leash, they need to slow down a bit. And for her, with her weak muscles, walking slowly was a lot more difficult. And she was a young dog and stressed out because she was overwhelmed by the outside world. And that makes pulling worse because they tend to be faster when they are stressed out. So they get to the end of the leash faster. And when they never knew what to do when they got to the end of the leash, they will just keep going. And that's when they start pulling. So Lilo learned to stay in a specific radius around her mom, and that this was rewarding for her. So she got nice things while she stayed in there. And they were really consistent. They were really consistent in not letting her make any mistakes. Of course, there were mistakes because just life, right? Things happen and sometimes we make mistakes. That's okay. And they stopped. And Lilo, since she was already fixed on training, whenever her human stopped interacting, she turned toward her questioningly and was wondering what happened. And that's when they could start fresh. And Lilo never got into pulling that severely again. So what I want you to do, if you have a dog who pulls like crazy, especially when seeing another dog, take the time to really assess what's going on. Try to find out why your dog is acting that way. And if you don't want to do that alone and do it with a professional, go to the description, book a free call. We see how I can help. And if we can do that together, because it is always part of my programs, right in the beginning, we have to get to the cause of it and then train sustainably and not with just suppressing behavior with prong collars, e-collars, and all those crappy things. And as soon as you've found the issue, really try to address the issue with the training you're doing and with your day-to-day life. It's not only training. Like for Lilo, training was a very short period of time each day because she couldn't concentrate that long in the beginning. And that's normal for dogs, especially young dogs. So she also got to do a lot of mental stimulation at home and all those coordination exercises we talked about. And you can do those with your dog, no harm done. If they don't help because it's not actually a part of the problem, they are at least nice mind teasers and brain teasers for your dog. And they are fun and they help you strengthen that connection with your dog. They are, so to say, a team building exercise. And that we can use all the time, right? So if this helps you, don't forget to like and subscribe, or rate and review depending on where you're watching. And leave me a comment or review, again, depending on where you're watching, telling me about your dog. Tell me what you have tried and if this inspired you to do it a little bit differently or to try it a little bit differently. I would love to read those. I read every single one of them, and they help even more people find this show and help their dogs live as the wonderful companions they can be and just not yet know how to be. That said, I wish you a lot of fun training, and we'll see each other next time. Bye!